In the humid, quiet air of Addis, Louisiana, the world usually moves at the speed of a slow-rolling river. But for 18-year-old John Foster, the silence was shattered by a phone call that would eventually echo across the entire nation. Before the bright lights of Hollywood and the deafening screams of millions, there was only a boy, a guitar, and a heavy secret tucked away in the back of a local meat market. Most people saw a charming country singer with a smile that could melt the South. But behind that polished exterior lay a grief so profound it almost silenced his voice forever. He wasn't just singing for a golden ticket. He was singing to survive a tragedy that had left his small town in mourning. The world was about to meet a valedictorian with the soul of an old-school outlaw, but no one realized that his journey to the stage was paved with more rejections than successes. The stage was set for a miracle, yet the truth behind his sudden rise was far more complicated than a simple audition. To understand the man, you have to understand the soil he grew up in. John Foster wasn't raised in a music conservatory. He was raised at Benoit's country meat block, surrounded by the smell of sawdust and the rhythm of a butcher's knife. While his peers were dreaming of escape, John was mastering the art of the small-town hustle, balancing his duties as a valedictorian with the physical labor of the family business. It was here, among the local regulars and the hum of industrial coolers, that he learned how to read a room. He wasn't just a student. He was a storyteller in training, absorbing the lives and struggles of every person who walked through those doors. But as his local legend grew, so did the pressure to follow a traditional path. His community saw a future doctor, a man of science and stability, while John felt a different calling, pulling him toward the neon lights of Nashville. He was living a double life, one foot in the clinic and one on the stage, until a sudden, dark turn forced him to choose his destiny. Every great artist has a why, and for John, that reason was born from a horrific accident that shook the foundations of Louisiana. The loss of his close friends, Maggie and Caroline, wasn't just a local news story. It was an emotional earthquake that leveled John's world. In the aftermath, he didn't turn to a therapist. He turned to 6 strings and a pen. He began writing "Tell That Angel I Love Her," a haunting tribute that he initially intended to keep for himself, a private conversation with the departed. This wasn't a song designed for a chart-topping album. It was a desperate plea for healing. But as he played the melody in the quiet corners of his bedroom, he realized that his pain was a universal language. The tragedy gave him a depth that most teenage singers lacked, a gravitas that felt decades older than his age. Yet, as he prepared to share this vulnerability with the world, a series of closed doors threatened to end his career before it even began, leaving him to wonder if his voice was truly meant to be heard. The narrative of the overnight sensation is often a carefully constructed myth, and John Foster's story is no exception. Long before he became a household name, he was just another face in a digital queue, facing the cold reality of the industry. He didn't just walk onto the American Idol stage and win. He was turned away twice, once in a virtual audition and once in a regional callback. John was told his sound wasn't what they were looking for. For many, these setbacks would have been the final curtain call, a sign to return to the meat market and the textbooks. But for John, every no was fuel for a fire that was beginning to burn out of control. He spent 3 years refining his craft, transitioning from a kid who liked to sing to a performer who understood the weight of every lyric. When the producers finally called him back for season 23, they weren't getting a novice. They were getting a veteran of disappointment who was no longer afraid of the word no. He was ready to gamble everything on one final high-stakes performance. When John finally stepped in front of the celebrity judges, he didn't come empty-handed. In a move that would become viral legend, he brought the Bayou to Hollywood, lugging in personalized coolers and local jerky. It was a masterclass in branding, a Cajun cooler strategy that instantly disarmed the room. But behind the charming gifts and the easy smile, the tension was thick enough to cut. This was the moment where the small-town boy persona met the harsh reality of professional critique. While the world saw a lighthearted exchange, John was standing on a knife's edge, knowing that his entire future depended on the next 3 minutes. He chose a Conway Twitty classic, a risky move that could have easily felt dated or karaoke level. As the first notes left his throat, the room shifted. It wasn't just about the jerky or the coolers anymore. It was about a voice that possessed a rare, gravelly authenticity. However, the victory was short-lived as one judge's initial hesitation hinted at the massive uphill battle he would face in the weeks to come. Within 24 hours of his audition airing, John Foster ceased to be a local secret. He became a digital phenomenon, his face plastered across every social media platform from TikTok to Facebook. The idol machine had begun to churn, and John was caught in the center of a whirlwind that few are prepared to handle. Suddenly, the boy from Addis was being analyzed by millions of armchair critics and devoted fans alike. His small-town authenticity became his greatest asset, but also his heaviest burden. As the views climbed into the tens of millions, rumors began to circulate in the darker corners of the internet. Speculation about his age, his past, and even his family's business started to surface, threatening to overshadow the music. This was his first taste of the dark side of fame, the realization that when you belong to everyone, you often lose a piece of yourself. He had to learn, in real time, how to navigate the noise while keeping his focus on the competition. Even as the emotional stakes of the show began to reach a breaking point. The turning point of the season came when John finally decided to pull the veil back on his personal tragedy. Performing Tell That Angel I Love Her on national television wasn't just a performance, it was an exorcism of grief. As the lights dimmed and the cameras zoomed in, the atmosphere in the studio changed from a competition to a cathedral. Viewers at home weren't just watching a contestant. They were witnessing a raw, unfiltered human moment that transcended the reality television format. The emotional arc of the song, dedicated to the friends he had lost on that Louisiana highway, created a bond with the audience that was unbreakable. It was the moment he shifted from a competitor to a favorite. But with that connection came an immense psychological pressure. He was now the vessel for the grief of millions, a responsibility that started to take a toll on his mental well-being behind the scenes. The weight of being the emotional anchor of the season was starting to show, and the cracks were beginning to form in his carefully managed composure. As John ascended into the top 5, the Golden Boy narrative began to meet resistance. Success at this level often breeds a specific kind of industry scrutiny. Whispers began to emerge that John was too polished, or that his humble background was a calculated play for votes. Some fans of other contestants started a narrative that he was secretly signed to a major label before the show, a claim that sparked heated discussions across fan forums. While John remained silent, the tension behind the scenes was rising. The pressure of living in a bubble in Los Angeles, far from the grounding influence of the meat market, was creating a rift between his public persona and his private reality. He was dealing with legal complications regarding his future contracts and the constant buzz of management agencies vying for a piece of his future. The dream was becoming a business, and the business was starting to feel like a cage. He had to decide if he was willing to play the game or if he would stay true to the boy from Addis. In a finale that split the nation, John Foster stood center stage as the confetti fell, but it wasn't for him. Finishing as the runner-up was a moment of profound irony. The cameras captured his gracious smile and his hug for the winner, but the true story was unfolding in the industry offices of Nashville. In the world of American Idol, sometimes losing is the ultimate win. By not being tethered to the winner's restrictive contract, John gained a level of creative freedom that his predecessors envied. The runner-up title became his badge of honor, a symbol of a man who didn't need a trophy to prove his worth. Within days, he was making his debut at the Grand Ole Opry, standing in the wooden circle where his heroes once stood. But even as the industry opened its doors, John faced a staggering dilemma. The medical world he had prepared for his entire life was still calling, and the choice between being a superstar and being a healer was a conflict that would define his post-show life in ways no one expected. Today, the story of John Foster remains one of the most intriguing what-ifs in modern music history. He exists in a state of beautiful contradiction. A man who can headline a sold-out festival on Saturday and sit for a grueling medical exam on Monday. He hasn't fully walked away from his dream of becoming an oncologist, nor has he abandoned the stage that made him a legend. This duality has created a soft mystery around his future. Will he eventually disappear from the limelight to save lives in a clinic? Or will he become the next great icon of country music? Some insiders claim he has already made his choice, while others suggest the truth is far more complex. Behind the scenes, tension remains about how he will balance these two worlds. One thing is certain, John Foster didn't just win the hearts of millions, he challenged the idea of what a celebrity is supposed to be. As the sun sets over the Louisiana bayou, the boy from the meat market is still writing his story, and the most shocking chapter might be the one he hasn't told yet.